All right, Fred, what's the first story?
Well, I'm sure you and Allison are glad that you went to Boston for your 40th wedding
Mm-hmm.
anniversary and not Paris,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people are talking about the opening ceremony on Friday evening of the Olympic Games and a depiction. We had drag queens in a picture that was reminiscent of the painting of the Last Supper. And it was disgusting on so many levels.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are talking about it this morning how they mocked Christianity in that people discussed it. We're going to talk about one company, C Spire, based here in the United States, said they're not going to run any more ads uh, throughout the Olympic Games. They had been scheduled to do so. But the designers of such are they're hearing from people that it upset Christians. You wouldn't do that to Islam, or you wouldn't do it to Buddhism, or you wouldn't do it to Hinduism, but they felt comfortable. Really, was what it was is mocking Christianity. One of those responding was Christian actress Candace Cameron
Actress.
Bure, and she had this to say, and kind of summed everything up the way a lot of people felt. Cut one.
Watch such an incredible and wonderful event that's going to take place over the next 2 weeks and see the opening ceremonies completely blaspheme and mock the Christian faith with their interpretation of the Last Supper was disgusting. And it made me so sad.
All right, so what I would venture to say most people didn't see this live, listening to us right now, and I got mixed stories. I heard that this was not played live on NBC, uh, on the NBC television network across America. It was on Peacock, which is their streaming service. I don't know that for sure,
Right.
but I know a
And
lot.
I've heard different things.
Yes, and but I know that a lot of people have seen clips of what happened. So the Olympic Games, every time they have an open ceremony, most of the time it's the country's teams with somebody holding their flag, walking out like in an Olympic stadium, for example. And it's a parade of countries. It's a celebration of the world gathering for competition, for athletic competition. And it's usually just a joy and a delight to watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, but what France decided to do this time, they gave this homosexual um, activist, designer, or I don't know what all he is.
His name is Thomas Jolly.
Thomas Jolly. He's a Frenchman.
Mm-hmm.
They gave him a hundred. I don't know. They gave him a whole bunch of money, millions and millions of dollars, and said, put together for us a production that would be for the opening ceremonies. And so part of this wasn't the entire thing, but a part of the opening ceremonies, which included the teams coming down the river, the famous river Seine. Is that the way it's pronounced?
Seine River. Yep.
In Paris, in boats. The teams came down in boats, and but then the part of it was this really bizarre looking scene set, which, as you say, had this morbidly obese woman playing the part of Jesus, and these drag queens to the east side of her, playing the part of the disciples. Now they would say that wasn't what it was about, but it was clear that they were doing this. They were mocking the Last Supper and the famous painting, the world famous painting by Leonardo da Vinci, which is in Milan. I think it's in Milan. Still
Right.
people can still see it today. Um, so, as you said, it was clearly a pot shot at or an attack upon Christianity and Christians. And here's the thing: this man would not have done this against Islam, or probably any other religion in the world.
Nope.
If he had had a production which mocked the Prophet Muhammad, what do you
Paris
think?
would still be on fire. I mean, Muslims in Paris, which has a I think almost 10% of the
In France,
population
yeah.
of Paris is Muslim. That city would be on fire.
Plus, I think had they done such an open mockery of Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, which is the most revered religious figure in Islam, you would have had probably all the Muslim countries pull out.
Yep.
Yes.
Or some kind of it would be an international controversy unlike anything you've ever seen for the Olympics. But no, this guy decided not to do that. He wanted to go after Christianity.
Yeah.
Instead, of course, Christianity does not promote violent reaction to even blasphemy.
Right.
But I think that's why. And these LGBTQ activists, not all gays and lesbians. I would say the vast majority of gays and lesbians are just peace-loving people.
Right.
You know,
They want to live their
they
lives.
want to live their lives. But you have the activist groups, and this guy's one of them. And they not only want to live their lives, they want to attack Christianity because they want to get rid of it. That's my view.
Yeah, and they hate God.
Right.
And if you're Tom Jolly and you have all this money for a budget and you've got to come up with some ideas for the opening ceremony, you have not an infinite number of choices, but you have a lot of different ways you can approach it. So what made Thomas Jolly, choose this? What is it in his head that made him choose this as the way to open the Olympics? And to me, it is the rebellion towards God and the hatred he has towards God because he knows God does not approve of the homosexual lifestyle. And this was his 15 minutes of fame, Thomas Jolly, and this was his way to shake his fist at God.
Well, and then he tries to gaslight the world by saying, "No, that wasn't my intention."
Right, to upset anyone.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then he has also, what was the deal with the blue Smurf?
Well, there was
the half-naked man.
Yeah. So part of the explanation on the part of some was that this was the feast of Dionysus, which was a Greek god of revelry and partying, I guess you could say. But I've looked over the weekend, and I'm looking now. It is clear. There is a painting of a feast of Dionysus with a crowd at a table. Okay, any big party is going to have a crowd at a table. It is clear the way these people are lined up at the opening ceremony. It was a mockery of the Lord's Supper by Da Vinci. So the blue Smurf, I think, was supposed to be the god Dionysus, which I guess was the way to show that we're in favor of partying and individual liberty that allows us to do whatever we want.
You know,
it's hard to get into guys like
I think it was a demonstration, no fear of God.
Right.
Bottom line, no fear of God. Also, it was their reaction to true biblical Christianity, which still believes the Bible that says homosexuality is a sexual perversion. And they can't stand that. So this was his avenue, Jolly's avenue, to go at this. But it's not only just a Paris thing. Or some people said it was a depiction of how far Europe has fallen.
Right.
But it was fully accepted in the mainstream media in this country.
Yes.
Let me read you the opening line from the Associated Press story. They're not quoting anybody. This is the reporter. In an unprecedented display of inclusivity, drag queens took center stage at the Paris Olympics opening ceremony, showcasing the vibrant and influential role of the French LGBTQ plus community. Now, that's the way the Associated Press opened up their news story on this. They were celebrating this.
Well,
they thought it
Jill
was
Biden said it was spectacular.
Yes.
The
First Lady Jill
ceremony.
Biden. Spectacular, she said.
But she's a devout Catholic, though.
Yeah, right.
So, listen, I understand. And
Kamala Harris also. vice president, she was celebrating the
The left is all in. They are all in on promoting the LGBTQ agenda. California signed into law, Gavin Newsom, a law that basically says if a kid in school at any age wants to transition to another gender, schools cannot tell parents.
Yep.
They are all in, folks. The choices are becoming very, very clear.
We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Fred here, and we appreciate you listening to AFR. We've been talking about what happened at the Olympic Games opening ceremony, where a man, what's the fellow's name? Thomas Jolly.
Thomas Jolly.
He's a Frenchman. He's a gay man. He was hired to put on the production of the opening ceremony, and a part of that was a scene which he used drag queens in a Last Supper it was a mockery of the Last Supper painting by Leonardo da Vinci, and he was mocking Christianity. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say before we leave this subject.
Yeah.
So go ahead. I just
wanted real quickly commend the company C Spire.
Mm-hmm.
They are a internet service provider. They're one of the largest.
And phone service.
I don't know if they're regional or national, but they're. I read where they're like the 6th largest internet service provider in the country. They immediately had this to say on their Twitter, the X. They said, the C Spire company said, quote, "We were shocked by the mockery of the Last Supper during the opening ceremonies of the Paris Olympics. C Spire will be pulling our advertising from the Olympics."
That's great.
So a good response from that particular corporation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame the sponsors. Okay, people can disagree, and there are degrees of response to this. Okay, but I don't blame the sponsors of the Olympics in the sense that they had knowledge of this. I'm sure if they had pre-knowledge of this, the vast majority of those companies would have said, no, we're not going to be a part of offending Christians. They're customers too.
Right.
But an NBC television network, they didn't. They're liberals for the most part, but they didn't sign up for that either. This is primarily the fault of the Olympic committee. Whoever gave this man the money to do this, the French. It's the French. It's the fault of the French government and the Olympic Committee for allowing this to go on.
Yep.
So, what did you want to say?
I do want to say, Steve Jordahl texted and said that C Spire is based in Mississippi. So, but I did ask whether it's regional and national provider. I did want to make mention of one thing that irritated me over the weekend almost as much as the opening ceremony, and that is on X, formerly known as Twitter. Christian leaders and Christians posting, well, the world's going to world. Why are you shocked that a homosexual director produced this? You know, folks, the world is going to be the world. Sinners are going to sin. And what irritated me about that is, first of all, it implies that Christians should do nothing when this kind of thing happens.
And should not be outraged.
And should not be outraged. But second of all, I never hear these kind of people say that about racism. Well, hey, look, racists are going to racist. You know, why speak out against it when sinners are going to sin? They don't ever say it. Except on this issue, on homosexuality.
Okay, got you.
They're always saying, listen, this is sinners. This is what sinners do. Stop complaining. Why are you surprised? Okay, maybe I'm not surprised, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't be outraged, and it doesn't mean we should do nothing. It doesn't mean we should be apathetic about it, because you're not apathetic, Christian leader, about racism. You're not apathetic about sexual trafficking.
Right.
Hey, I don't hear anyone saying, well, sinners are going to sin. Okay, so let's drop the attitude that Christians should do nothing about things. If we live in, and France is a Democratic/Republican country, people ought to be able to speak up and say, no, we're not going to do this next time. And there's nothing wrong with speaking up in this country. I get tired of that attitude.